Hey guys, welcome back to another video of Frozen Inside. This is another episode of the series What If has evolved his Pokemon. Finally he got some brain in his head and he's going to evolve his those Pokemon who are in first or second level nursery step. So then he can gain some really good Pokemon. Like if he evolve his beliefs, he can get a Meganium, and Meganium is a really good Pokemon if you sorry, that's actually not a good Pokemon if I remember correctly. But if he evolved his Bulbasaur to a Venusaur, you can see what can he do actually. But that's not only the point. The point is there are many Pokemons like Gible, like Crocodile, and so you can just think about it. In his journey, he goes on retaking Kanto gyms, so you can see what will happen. Without any more delay, let's begin today's episode.
After an encounter with Burgundy, our heroes continue with their commute through the Unova region. Ash and the group soon decide to take a rest in Route 4 in a nice part of the forest route next to a beautiful lake, which Ash remembers as the spot where he captured his Seismitoad when he was a Palpitoad and where his friend Scyllin captured his Stunfisk. Max meanwhile is fishing for Pokemon in the pond with his lure, hoping to catch something on it. Any nibbles? May asks her brother, wondering if he's caught anything yet. So far nothing, May. Max says, not having even a nibble in the last 5 minutes of fishing for any Pokemon that may live in the lake. Max, I don't know how I'm going to tell Mom and Dad about me and Dawn. May says to her brother concerning the matter of coming out their parents about their sexuality and the relationship the two coordinators are currently in. May, how and when you, Dawn, are going to tell Mom? Dad and Dawn's mom is up to you. I just want to tell you, no matter what happens, I'll be there for you both. Max says, wanting his older sister to know he'll accept his sister whether she was gay or straight. May then smiles at her brother, happy at his response. Thank you, Max, I needed that, May says, appreciating the support. Suddenly Max's rod begins to tug, apparently having attracted an underwater Pokemon with it. I've got a bite. Max says and reels the fishing lure in, and the Pokemon to emerge from the water is a Stunfisk. Stun, it says, and May pulls out her Pokédex, curious about this one. Stunfisk, the trap Pokemon. Its skin is very hard, so it is unhurt even if stepped on by sumo wrestlers. It smiles when transmitting electricity. According to the Pokédex, it's a ground and electric type, but it looks like a water type. May says, thinking that is a bit weird, but suddenly Stunfisk fires a mud bomb attack, but May gets out of the way before she is hit. I think I'm going to try and catch this one. Sceptile, use Leaf Blade. Max says and throws a Pokeball, unleashing the forest Pokemon, whose wrist leaves glow light green and form into two, and then goes to strike at Stunfisk, only for the trap Pokemon to leap into the air and begins flapping their fins and becomes airborne. They can do that? May asks, being completely unfamiliar with this Pokemon. Sceptile, use Leaf Storm. Max says, and the seeds on Sceptile's back glow white and it releases a barrage of light green glowing leaves at Stunfisk, which overwhelm the trap Pokemon, causing it to lose altitude and come crashing to the ground, but not fainted. I'm starting to like Stunfisk, Max says, admiring the Pokemon's endurance and abilities. Sceptile, use X Scissor. Max says, and Sceptile's 4 leaves connect into 2 and glow white and goes to slash Stunfisk, only to be hit by a discharge attack fired by Stunfisk. Whoa, that was one powerful discharge. Ash says, commenting on the power of Stunfisk's attack. Sceptile, are you alright? Max asks the forest Pokemon, who nods. Yes, standing up perfectly. Alright then, Sceptile, use Mega Drain. Max says, and Sceptile fires a blast of green energy and absorbs the HP of Stunfisk and gives it to Sceptile. Now use Leaf Blade. Max says, and Sceptile slashes the trap Pokemon with 2 green glowing arm blades, causing Stunfisk to faint. Now go Pokeball. Max says and throws a Pokeball on the fainted Stunfisk, which then absorbs the trap Pokemon inside of it and then wobbles and blinks for several seconds and then halts, and sparkles fly off of it, confirming its capture, and shrinks down since Max already has 6 Pokemon on his team. Suddenly a Dragon Pulse attack is fired, but May and Max get out of the way before it can hit, and they look to see the attack was used by the Salamence, who is owned by none other Pokemon Hunter Jay, who has tracked them down since their last encounter in Pinwheel Forest. Not her again. Ash says, having absolutely no love for the ruthless and cruel Pokemon Hunter, and Salamence fires yet another Dragon Pulse, but the group dodges it again. I'd advise you to hand over Purloin immediately, Jay says. Purloin is somewhere safe from you, and even if Purloin was here I wouldn't do that, Ash says and pulls out a Pokeball. Drillbur use Metal Sound. Ash says, and the mole Pokemon is unleashed from its Pokeball. Drillbur, the mole Pokemon, says upon begin unleashed, and then rubs its claws together and sends out silver-colored sound waves, which sends it at Salamence, which hits the dragon Pokemon. Salamence tosses back and forth, hearing a loud ringing sound that echoes through its ears, finding the sound unbearable, making Jay angry. Salamence use Dragon Breath. Jay commands, and Salamence's eyes glow red, and it fires a transparent beam of energy with white rings around it from its mouth at Drillbur, sending the mole Pokemon flying. Drillbur. Ash says, concerned Drillbur had gotten hurt from the attack. Mamoswine, come on out. Dawn says and unleashes the twin-tusk Pokemon is unleashed from its Pokeball. Mamo. It yells out upon begin unleashed, and Bianca pulls out her Pokédex, curious about this one. Mamoswine, the twin-tusk Pokemon. A frozen one, was dug up from soil dating back 10,000 years. It woke up to much amazement. Mamoswine use Ice Shard. Dawn says, and Mamoswine releases multiple glowing light blue icicles from its mouth at Salamence, which does sufficient damage to the dragon Pokemon, but somehow miraculously it maintains altitude. Jay becomes even more angrier by this and pulls out her cannon and begins firing shots at the group, attempting to freeze them as they keep jumping to dodge the beam. Don't let the shots from her cannon hit, if it does you'll be frozen. Ash says, remembering the effects of her cannon. May then gets behind a large rock and pulls out a Pokeball and throws it in the air. Glaceon, take the stage. May says, and the fresh snow Pokemon is unleashed from its Pokeball. Glaceon. It exclaims, Glaceon, bring Hunter Jay and Salamence down with Ice Beam. May says, and Glaceon fires a light blue beam of ice which hits Salamence, causing significant damage to the dragon Pokemon, bringing it to the ground. You're outnumbered, Jay, it's 5 against 1, surrender. Ash says, thinking they can defeat Jay since the group currently outnumbers Jay by 4. Jay then smiles. I doubt that very much, Jay says, and suddenly Jay's men in their vehicles surround the place. Dawn, we need Abra. Ash says, thinking Abra is their best hope of escaping Jay's men. Good idea, Abra use teleport. Dawn says, throws the Psy Pokemon's Pokeball in the air, unleashing it, and its body becomes surrounded by a multicolored veil, and the whole group including their Pokemon are teleported away from the location, and Jay gets up from the ground. Sir, the client has called in, he is canceling the deal. Her henchman reports. Coward, she says, and then yells out into the sky, angry at her loss. The group then teleports away from Hunter Jay and her men and look around to see they are now in a forest path. Where are we now? Dawn asks. Piplup. Piplup asks, also wondering where the group is now. Ash then pulls out his Pokegear to check exactly where they are and finds out. According to the Pokegear, we're just half a mile from Nimbasa. Ash says, and everyone smiles happy, not just because they are a good distance from Hunter Jay and her men, but the place they were intended to get to. Abra's teleport is getting better, Dawn. Max says, commenting that Abra's teleport range now simply teleports them somewhere else in the current region rather than just warp them to a completely different region, which is what got them here in the first place. Funny seeing you here, Ash. A voice calls out, and they look up to see the one who said that is Anthony, the trainer they met in Castelia City, riding a Skarmory for transportation, and Bianca pulls out her Pokédex. Skarmory, the armor bird Pokemon. Despite being clad entirely in iron-hard armor, it flies at speed of over 180 miles per hour. So why did you guys teleport here? Anthony asks. We ran into a Pokemon hunter named Jay who was after Ash's shiny Purloin. May explains. I've heard about that lady on the news, heard she's pretty dangerous and no surprise she'd try and catch a shiny Pokemon. Those can go for pretty high price on the black market, Anthony replies. I've ran into her a bunch of times, Ash says, remembering all the times he had encountered the ruthless and cruel Pokemon hunter during his travels in the Sinnoh region until she was betrayed by Team Galactic, who had hired in the first place to capture the Lake Guardians and was thought to have died. But like you said, we should try and keep a low profile, Max says, remembering Ash says they should do that when they escaped Jay the last time. Let's just be happy we're away from her right now, Ash says, and Ash turns to Anthony. Hey Anthony, while you're here, what do you say we have a battle? Ash asks, wanting to see what other Pokemon he has besides Solrock, Skarmory and Sandslash. Okay then, I accept. How does 2-on-2 sound? Anthony asks. Okay, I'll do that, Ash says. Good, Anthony says, and pulls out a Pokeball. Venusaur, let's go, he says, and throws a Pokeball in the air, and the seed Pokemon is unleashed. Venusaur, he exclaims upon being unleashed, and Bianca pulls out her Pokédex. Venusaur, the seed Pokemon. After a rainy day, the flower on its back smells stronger. The scent attracts other Pokemon. Alright then, Torkoal, I choose you, Ash says, and the coal Pokemon is unleashed from its Pokeball and shoots smoke out of its back and nose. Torkoal, it exclaims upon being unleashed. Is Anthony still gonna use Venusaur? I mean, a grass type has a huge disadvantage against a fire type like Torkoal. Max asks, finding the whole thing to be strange at best. Alright, Torkoal, use Flamethrower, Ash says, and the coal Pokemon fires a spray of fire from its mouth. Venusaur, use Protect, Anthony says, and Venusaur becomes surrounded by a blue veil which shields it from Torkoal's Flamethrower attack. Now use Earthquake, Anthony says, and Venusaur smashes down on the ground with his feet, causing shock waves to go through the ground, which hits Torkoal, sending the coal Pokemon flying. Torkoal, Ash says, and Torkoal falls to the ground fainted. Whoa. Venusaur knocked Torkoal out with just one Earthquake, Dawn says. Venusaur must be one high-leveled Pokemon, Max says, after seeing Venusaur defeat Torkoal with just one Earthquake attack. Ash then recalls Torkoal back to its Pokeball. Good job, get some rest, Ash says, and Anthony recalls Venusaur as well, apparently planning to use another Pokemon. What do you think Anthony is going to use next? Bianca asks, wondering what Pokemon he plans to use. Anthony then pulls out another Pokeball and throws it in the air, and an Arcanine is unleashed from its Pokeball. An Arcanine, Max says, and Bianca pulls out her Pokédex, curious about this one as well. Arcanine, the legendary Pokemon. Its proud and regal appearance has captured the hearts of people since long ago. Alright then, Electabuzz, I choose you, Ash says, and throws a Pokeball in the air, and the electric Pokemon is unleashed from his Pokemon. Elect, it says upon being unleashed. Alright then, Flame Charge, Anthony says, and Arcanine cloaks itself in fire and charges at Electabuzz. Dodge it and use Electro Ball, Ash says, and Electabuzz jumps up, dodging Arcanine's attack, and fires a sphere of electricity at Arcanine, which hits the legendary Pokemon but does not do serious damage to Arcanine. Arcanine, use Bulldoze, Anthony says, and Arcanine jumps up and stomps on the ground, which creates a small earthquake, which collides with Electabuzz, doing a good amount of damage to the electric Pokemon, but he still stands, not wanting to give up too easy. Electabuzz, use Thunder Punch, Ash says, and Electabuzz's fist glows yellow or white, and sparks of electricity surround its arm or antennae and charges at Arcanine to punch it. Arcanine, use Flamethrower, Anthony says, and Arcanine fires a spray of fire from its mouth and hits Electabuzz and sends him flying, and the electric Pokemon falls to the ground fainted. Electabuzz return, Ash says, recalling the electric Pokemon back to his Pokeball, as does Anthony with Arcanine. That was a great battle, Anthony, Ash says, even though he lost the battle is happy Anthony won it, proving he is a tough opponent. Thanks, it's been great seeing you, hope we can do this again, Anthony says, and walks off, and Ash smiles, so far liking the Pokemon trainer. Ash and the group then do the same and continue to walk through the forest path to Nimbasa City. After an encounter with Pokemon Hunter J and a short battle with Anthony, Ash and his friends continue their commute through the Unova region, with their next stop being Nimbasa City. After a battle with the group's new friend Anthony, Ash and friends now enter Nimbasa City, their last stop before returning to the Kanto region. "We're almost there, guys," Ash says using his Pokegear for directions. The group soon enters the gates of Nimbasa City and looks out in wonder to see the city, which has several visible amusement parks. "Whoa. Ash, you weren't kidding," May says, admiring the city. "Let's go," Dawn says and begins running down the stairs ready to check out the sights of Nimbasa and May. Max and Bianca follows the coordinator from Sinnoh. Ash and Pikachu look out into the sky wondering when Hunter J will catch up to the group. Meanwhile, in the skies of Kanto, Hunter J's airship flies through the air as she slams her fists down on her desk, angry over the loss of her recent targets, which are the shiny Purloin and Zekrom, who both ironically now belong to the Ash Ketchum, the boy that has interfered in her work since she encountered him in the Sinnoh region 3 years ago. "Sir, we have yet to locate Ketchum. He could be anywhere in the Unova region thanks to that Abra's teleport," a pilot reports to Jay, and Jay groans in anger. "If there is any sign of him, I want to be informed immediately." Jay says, wanting revenge on Ash for making a fool of her and foiling her missions on several occasions in the past. Back in Nimbasa City, where Ash and the gang are currently commuting through, Ash and Bianca are currently inside of the Ferris wheel, riding inside of the thing. "So Ash, what's Kanto like?" Bianca asks, only having heard small stories about the region and seen a couple pictures of the region. "It's kind of like Unova in some ways, but it's also different in other means," Ash says, explaining the details about his home region. "How different?" Bianca asks. "Pokemon found here in the Unova region can't be found in any other regions, so the Pokemon here are pretty rare in Kanto," Ash explains to the bubbly blonde trainer. "Pokemon like Meganium, Pikachu, and all the ones I saw you, Anthony, May, Max and Dawn used. That sounds absolutely amazing," Bianca says, feeling more excited than ever to go to the Kanto region and capture new Pokemon there that are native to that region. "That's the spirit. After we're done here, we have to find a plane to take us back to Kanto," Ash says, revealing the group is going to be returning back to Kanto by air travel. The group then approaches a court in the city. "Whoa, what is it?" Max asks, wondering what the place is used for. "It's a small court. It's used for sports here. There's also a big stadiums here used for football too," Ash explains to his friend, since the trainer has never been to this region before. "Yes indeed," a voice calls out and Ash recognizes it. "Oh, hello, Burgundy," Ash says, recognizing the voice, and turns around to see the lilac-haired Pokemon Kanaisu's trainer standing behind the group. "Didn't expect me to get here so fast, didn't hear, but as you already know, I run pretty fast," she says. "Listen, I'm having too much a good day to hear about any revenge-based things you'll rant about," Ash says, not being in the mood to have to listen to Burgundy's ranting today. Burgundy then growls at him, a little ticked by Ash's comment he made just now. "I'm going to pretend like you didn't say that," Burgundy says, not wanting to lose her composure while talking with her rival. "And also, I should tell you something that I have achieved since the last time we met, Ash, for I have been promoted to B class Kanaisus," Burgundy announces, revealing she has been promoted up to B class in the last year. "Okay, but remember, you can't evaluate Pokemon since you're not an A class or above, and I bet it takes longer to become an A class than a B class," Ash says, since Kanaisu's trainer's C class can only work as an assistant to a class Kanaisu's or above. "It will be worth the wait, I assure monsieur. Then I'll have my revenge on you," Burgundy says, having lost interest in getting revenge on Sylvan and now seeks revenge against Ash for insulting her skills as a Kanaisu's. Back in Kanto, Giovanni sits at his desk talking with Pierce over video communication. Pierce has everything in place for the operation in Saffron City. Giovanni asks the elite officer, wondering if he, James, Jesse and Meowth has everything in place in Saffron. "Yes sir, we are ready to commence at your command," Pierce says, reporting on his and the trio's mission in Saffron City. Excellent report back when you have completed your mission, Giovanni says. Sir. Pierce says and exits out. Now that I am sure their mission is being accomplished, I'm going to deal with Ketchum the way I should have done from the beginning, Giovanni says, deciding not to just send another high-ranking rocket agent after Ash. Sir, are you thinking of who I am thinking about? Matori, Giovanni's secretary, asks. Indeed, Matori, call in hideout, Giovanni says to his secretary, who bows and leaves to make the call out to this hideout, and Giovanni smirks, knowing who he is. Back in Unova, May and Dawn are currently playing a round of tennis in the small court. So I'm thinking for the appeals round I'm either going to use Emolga or Togekiss. To be honest, I think either one would be alright, Dawn says to her girlfriend, explaining what she plans to do for her first Kanto region Pokemon contest. Using Emolga would certainly surprise everyone in the audience, May says, and hits a ball with a racket back at Dawn, who does the same thing as they, being doing this in a pattern, and Dawn stops. May, seriously, we need to find out when we're going to tell my mom and your parents about us, Dawn says, bringing the topic back up involving the girls' relationship with each other and their sexual orientation. I know, Dawn, have you come up for what you're going to tell your mom? May asks her girlfriend, enquiring if she has come up of a method of telling her mother about her homosexuality and relationship with May. Dawn then sighs. I'm still working that out. She'll probably just say that I'm too young to be even thinking about that right now. I just hope she'll accept in some way, Dawn says, being a bit nervous on the topic of coming out of the closet to her mother. May then goes over and embraces Dawn. Don't worry, whatever happens, we'll have each other, May says, and gives Dawn a kiss on the cheek, wanting to keep her calm during all of this. Soon after a good amount of time in Nimbasa City and taking plenty of pictures and enjoying the sights, the group gets on the next flight back to the Kanto region, which will land in Saffron City, giving Ash and Dawn plenty of time to prepare for both Ash's gym battle with Sabrina and Dawn's first Kanto region Pokemon contest. So Ash, what about the Pokemon at Professor Juniper's lab? Max asks, sitting in the seat next to Ash on the plane. They're being shipped to Professor Oak's lab even as we speak, Ash says, revealing that is how the Pokemon he had stored at Juniper's lab are currently going. I can't believe it, I'm going to another region, Bianca says, excited to go someplace new that's far away from this region to explore. Passengers, we are clear for takeoff to the Kanto region, a pilot announces over the speaker. Well, Pikachu, we're going home, Ash says to Pikachu. Pika Pie. Pikachu says, and unknown to them, Burgundy is sitting all the way in the back row where Ash and his friends can't see her. I'll go anywhere to get revenge on you, she says to herself in her thoughts. Soon the plane takes flight, going straight for Saffron City in the Kanto region, and unknown to the plane, Hunter J's airship is following them, and it cloaks so no one notices it. Somewhere in the Kanto region at the Team Rocket HQ, Giovanni speaks with someone over a video feed. This target sounds difficult, Giovanni, but I believe I will be able to eliminate Ketchum, the man known as Guild Hideout voice says over the video feed, showing him to be a man wearing blue armor covering his entire body. Excellent, Hideout, proceed when you have him in your sights, Giovanni says to the armored assassin who the Team Rocket leader has hired to kill Ash to keep him from interfering with any more of their operations. I will eliminate Ketchum only with the time is right and at no other, Guild responds, being very professional and competent at his job and plans ahead before preparing to assassinate the target. Our heroes have finally returned to the Kanto region after a nearly 2-week commute in the faraway region, and now Ash prepares for his gym battle with the city's gym leader Sabrina. So what else happened in the Unova region? Professor Oak asks Ash over the videophone after hearing his story of him being warped there by Dawn's Abra. We ran into Hunter J there, Ash says, telling the Pokemon professor of the group's encounter with the long thought to be dead Pokemon Hunter. Just watch out, Ash, there is a possibility she could have followed you back here, Professor Oak says, warning him to watch out in case Hunter J tries something else. He says, warning Ash to keep his eyes in case Jay did follow him back to Kanto from Unova. I will, Professor, but anyway, have you gotten the Pokemon I caught in Unova yet? Ash asks. Ah, yes, indeed, Ash, they just arrived. Professor Oak says, having received the Pokemon Ash had captured while in Unova to his lab. Good, I'm getting ready for my battle with Sabrina, and I might need some of my Pokemon from your lab, and also while in Unova I captured a Pokemon that might be considered rare in both regions. Ash explains to Professor Oak. Really, what Pokemon is that? He asks. At Professor Oak's lab, Ash's Unpheasant, Pidgeot and Staraptor sit on top of trees in the research lab. You captured Zekrom. Professor Oak yells, and the 3 flying Pokemon fly away startled. I know, I was pretty surprised myself. It's one of the reason Jay was following me in Unova in the first place. Ash explains to the Pokemon professor concerning how he captured the deep dark Pokemon. Well, that would make much sense. Zekrom is a legendary Pokemon, of course. Professor Oak says, I know, I just don't want that woman to get her hands on Zekrom. Who knows what would happen to him? Ash says, knowing if Jay somehow captured Zekrom, she would sell him on the black market for a high price. But to the point, Ash, what Pokemon do you plan to use for your battle with Sabrina? Professor Oak asks the 16-year-old Pokemon trainer, and he smiles. I have a good idea of what I'm going to use, Ash says. Meanwhile, outside of the Pokemon Center, Dawn trains for her Pokemon for the Saffron City Pokemon Contest, which is her first one she is going to enter since she came to the region to participate in them. Quilava Eruption. Dawn says, and Quilava charges up and ignites the flames on its head and tail, and they grow larger. It then fires a geyser of red-orange fire from the flame on its head into the air. Dawn, Quilava's eruption is getting pretty good, May says to her girlfriend, commenting that Quilava's fire-type moves are becoming more slick. That's thanks to Blaziken giving Quilava advice, Dawn says. Dawn then pulls out a bag of freshly made Poffin. Alright, it's snack. Whoa. Dawn says, and slips on a rock only to be grabbed by May before she hits the ground, and the Poffin flies everywhere, and Pachirisu sees one in its sights and goes over to eat it when suddenly a foot steps on it, and the Elisquirrel Pokemon looks up to see a female Garchomp who looks somewhat familiar. Garchomp, she says, and Pachirisu becomes angry at the sight of its snack being crushed, and before the Elisquirrel Pokemon can do anything, Dawn recalls it to its Pokeball. Pachirisu, return, Dawn says. Garchomp. A voice calls out, and Dawn immediately recognizes it and looks to see Ursula, the coordinator she had made a fierce rivalry with back in the Sinnoh region, and Ursula sees her and frowns. Oh great, you're here, Ursula says, not being friendly towards Dawn at all. The feeling is mutual, of course. Ursula, I didn't expect to see you here, Dawn says, not expecting and hoping she didn't have to run into Ursula here. Well, if you must now, I'm going to compete in the Pokemon contest here, and I can assume since you are here you plan to compete as well, Ursula says, revealing she intends to compete in the Pokemon contests here in Kanto just as Dawn plans to. Ursula then notices Glaceon sitting next to May. Wait a minute, I remember that Glaceon, Ursula says, and begins to remember where she has seen that Glaceon before, and looks at May. Now I remember you, Ursula says, pointing at May. Me? May asks. I remember you from the Wallace Cup. I also remember you being defeated by Dawn in the final round, but of course Dawn winning was a complete accident, Ursula says to May, being a bit of a sore loser. May becomes a bit aggravated by this, not liking Dawn being insulted by Ursula for winning a content that Ursula was eliminated in the first round. Well, I see someone still thinks they're a superior coordinator even though she's not, Ash says, walking in, having changed the Pokemon in his party minus Pikachu, of course. Forget it, I'm not going to go any further in our conversation, Ursula says, and begins to walk away with her Garchomp, who has evolved from her Gabite since the last time they had met. But don't expect to win this contest, Dawn, Ursula says, and then walks off. Well, she seems spiteful, Max says after merely a moment of listening to her and Dawn's interactions with each other, seeing their obvious fierce rivalry with each other. Looks like you're going to have competition for the Pokemon contest, Bianca says, seeing the whole thing. "So Ash, are you ready to battle Sabrina?" May asks the Pokemon trainer if Ash is ready to battle Sabrina. "I am, let's go," Ash says, and the gang go off to the gym so Ash can battle Sabrina there. The group soon makes their way to the gym of Saffron City, which sees has gone from having a white color to now being repainted purple. Looks like Sabrina had it repainted, it looks nice," Ash says, commenting on the gym's new color scheme. Ash then knocks on the door and waits for someone to answer it, and someone does. "Oh, a challenger, come this way," he says, and the group follows him through the gym halls, which shows the walls painted psychic purple, probably because of this being a psychic type gym. The group soon enters the battlefield inside the gym, where Sabrina sits in a chair on the other side looking away from Ash, currently petting her Espeon, who is sitting on her lap. "Hello Ash," Sabrina says, not even seeing them, and Ash gets a bit scared by this. Sabrina then turns around and stands up while holding Espeon, showing she now has a new look, which shows she now has a new hairstyle, wears a pinkish red tank top which shows her belly, white paints, pinkish red shoes, and large black bracelets with green lines on them. "Hey Sabrina, I see you've done some redesigning of the gym since I was last here," Ash says, commenting on the gym's new paint job, thinking it's pretty nice. "Thanks, I decided to paint it purple to represent the gym's psychic type Pokemon," Sabrina says. "Anyway, I'm here to challenge me to a battle and win the Marsh badge by earning it through defeating me," Sabrina says, completing Ash's sentence for him, surprising him. "I saw you in a vision, Ash. I'm a psychic, remember?" Sabrina says, reminding Ash of her renowned knowledge when it comes to the art of psychics. "Oh yeah, I forget about, so do you accept me challenge?" Ash asks, and Sabrina smiles. "You know, as a gym leader I have no choice, Ash," Sabrina says, and pulls out a Pokeball. "The fight will be 3-on-3 and only you will be able to make substitutions," Sabrina says before the referee can even say anything, who stands where he is surprised she said that before him. "Alright then, Muck, I choose you," Ash says, and throws a Pokeball, and the sludge Pokemon is unleashed from its Pokeball. Muck. It says upon being unleashed from its Pokeball, and Bianca pulls out her Pokeball to check the data on the unfamiliar Pokemon. Muck, the sludge Pokemon. A toxic fluid seeps from its body. The fluid instantly kills plants and trees on contact. "Alright then, Gallade, I choose you," Sabrina says, and the Blade Pokemon is unleashed from his Pokeball. "Gallade," he says, and Bianca pulls out her Pokédex. Gallade, the Blade Pokemon. When protecting someone, it extends its elbows as if they were swords and fights savagely. "Muck, use Sludge Bomb," Ash says, and Muck hurls several shots of filthy sludge at Gallade. Gallade, dodge and use Poison Jab," Sabrina says, and Gallade dodges Muck's poison-type attack, and then his arms glow purple and hits Muck twice, causing considerable damage to the sludge Pokemon's HP. "Whoa. That was smart of Sabrina," Max says. "Why?" Bianca asks. "A poison-type move can be super effective against another poison type. It works the same way with dragon types," Max explains. "Muck, now use Disable," Ash says, and Muck's eyes glow blue, and Gallade becomes outlined in light blue briefly, and then the light fades. "Whoa. What move was that?" Bianca asks. Muck just used Disable, which means Gallade won't be able to use Poison Jab for a while, Max explains, answering Bianca's question on what move Ash's Muck had just used. "Gallade used Stone Edge," Sabrina says, and Gallade's body becomes surrounded in white energy for a moment, and the energy comes off its body in the form of 2 rings of jagged white energy orbs that float around it. The white energy then fades, forming the orbs into gray jagged stones, and then fires them at Muck, which causes more damage to the sludge Pokemon's HP. Muck isn't looking very good. "He can't take much more, I better do something quick," Ash says to himself in his thoughts, thinking about what to do next, and then he suddenly thinks of something, remembering that recently Muck has learned a new move which should be useful against Gallade, who is a dual psychic and fighting type Pokemon. "Muck, use Payback," Ash says, and Muck then slams into Gallade with incredible force, causing considerable damage to the Blade Pokemon's HP level. Muck just used Payback. It's a move that's power will double if the opponent attacks first, Max says, revealing the effects of the dark-type damage-dealing move. Gallade stands weakly on Sabrina's side of the battlefield, breathing heavily. Muck now use sludge. Ash says and fires large balls of sludge from its mouth at Gallade, which causes even more damage to Gallade, and Gallade gives out and falls to the ground fainted. Gallade is unable to battle the winner as Muck. The referee says, and Sabrina recalls Gallade back to his Pokeball after being defeated, as does Ash, with Muck deciding to use another Pokemon for Sabrina's next Pokemon. What Pokemon is Ash going to use next? Bianca asks, wondering what Pokemon Ash will use next against Sabrina's second Pokemon in the battle. The bigger question is, what Pokemon will Sabrina use next? Max asks. Sabrina then pulls out a Pokeball. This next Pokemon will be difficult to defeat, Ash. Alakazam, I choose you. Sabrina says, and the Psy Pokemon is unleashed from its Pokeball. Alakazam. It says upon being unleashed. Alakazam. I guess Kadabra must have evolved. Ash says to himself in his thoughts, and then Ash pulls out a Pokeball and enlarges it. Okay then, Fearow, I choose you. Ash says and throws a Pokeball in the air, and the Beak Pokemon is unleashed from its Pokeball. Fearow. It exclaims. Your move, Sabrina. Ash says, giving Sabrina the first go. Alright then, Alakazam, use Charge Beam. Sabrina says, and Alakazam puts its hands together in an orb of yellow electricity and fires a beam of yellow electricity from the orb at Fearow. Dodge it and use Drill Peck. Ash says, and Fearow's beak glows white and spins like a drill and then pecks Alakazam, doing considerable damage to the Psy Pokemon's health, but Alakazam still stands still, having enough health left to fight. Whoa, that Drill Peck was pretty strong. Dawn says, commenting on the strength of Fearow's Drill Peck against Alakazam. Alakazam use Recover. Sabrina says, and Alakazam's whole body glows purple pinkish and all of the damage on its body disappears. Recover. This is going to be tougher than I thought. Ash says. Fearow use Feint Attack. Ash says, and Fearow sneaks up behind Alakazam and then kicks it with its feet, causing critical damage to the Psy Pokemon due to it being a dark-type move. Now use Drill Peck again. Ash says, and the Beak Pokemon's beak glows white and spins like a drill and then pecks Alakazam once again, and by doing this reduces the Psy Pokemon's HP even more. Now use Feint Attack again. Ash says, and Fearow goes to attack again. Alakazam now use Attract. Sabrina says, and the Psy Pokemon puts its hands together and fires multiple pink hearts with pink sparkles which hit Fearow, and hearts form on both of its eyes and it just stays in the air immobilized. Alakazam just used Attract. Bianca says, recognizing the move. Ash then recalls the love-struck Fearow back to its Pokeball and pulls out another. Alright, I hope Attract won't work on this one. Weasel, I choose you. Ash says, and the Sea Weasel Pokemon is unleashed from his Pokeball. Buoy Buoy. He says after being unleashed, and Bianca pulls out her Pokédex. Weasel, the Sea Weasel Pokemon. It spins its two tails like a screw to propel itself through water. The tails also slice clinging seaweed. Alakazam use Recover again. Sabrina says, and Alakazam whole body becomes engulfed by pinkish-purple energy and it recovers its health once again, but it appears to have less effect this time. Weasel use Aqua Jet. Ash says, and Weasel's body briefly becomes surrounded in blue energy. When the blue glow fades, its body becomes surrounded in water and it shoots itself like a rocket at the opponent, slamming into Alakazam, causing damage to the Psy Pokemon's HP. Attract. Sabrina says, and Alakazam fires more hearts at Weasel only to show they have no effect, showing that Alakazam is a male just like Weasel. Whoa. Attract didn't work on Weasel. Max says. Alakazam use Energy Ball. Sabrina says, and Alakazam puts its hands together and a light green orb of energy forms and prepares to fire it at Weasel, which does some serious damage to Weasel due to grass-type attacks being super effective, but the Sea Weasel Pokemon stays standing. Weasel don't give up. Ash says, and suddenly Weasel begins to glow white and blue, surprising everyone watching the battle. Weasel is evolving. Ash says, knowing what is happening, and soon Buizel, while evolving, begins to grow in size, as does his tails, and the glowing stops and shows Buizel in his new form of a Floatzel. Buizel just evolved into Floatzel. Dawn says, and Bianca pulls out her Pokédex. Floatzel, the sea weasel Pokemon and the evolved form of Buizel. It is a common sight around fishing ports. It is known to rescue people and carry off prey. Awesome. Ash says, and Floatzel then blasts a powerful jet of water from its tail at Alakazam, sending the side Pokemon flying across the battlefield, and the dust clears, showing Alakazam fainted on the ground. Alakazam is unable to battle. The winner is Floatzel. The referee says, and Sabrina recalls Alakazam back to his Pokeball after his defeat, and Ash does the same, deciding to pull out another Pokemon instead. Sabrina is down to her last Pokemon. I wonder what she's going to use next. Max asks, wondering what the Psychic-type gym leader plans to use next in her battle against Ash. Gengar, I choose you. Sabrina says, and the Shadow Pokemon is unleashed from its Pokeball, and Ash immediately recognizes it as the Haunter he had brought to battle Sabrina with, only for it to help her regain her sanity, which had been lost for years. So it's Gengar then. It's a poison and ghost time, so maybe I should keep us at equal level. Ash says to himself in his thoughts on what to do next, and then pulls out a Pokeball and throws it in the air, and Muck is unleashed from its Pokeball. Muck! It exclaims. Ash is using 2 poison types. May asks, this should get interesting. Max says. Gengar use Shadow Punch. Sabrina says, and Gengar pulls back one of its arms, and purple and black energy appears around it and forms into its arm, and releases a black fist in the shape of Gengar's fist with a purple outline, which then hits Muck, sending him flying, and hits the ground but still able to battle. Muck use Mud Bomb. Ash says, and Muck opens its mouth and fires globs of mud from its mouth at Gengar. Good job, now use Shadow Punch. Ash says, and Muck's hand becomes surrounded by black and purple energy, and then punches Gengar, which knocks the Shadow Pokemon out, leaving it fainted on the ground. Gengar is unable to battle. The winner is Muck. The victory goes to Ash Ketchum. The referee says, and Ash smiles, and Sabrina recalls the fainted Gengar back to its Pokeball to rest. Outside of the gym, Sabrina presents Ash with the Marsh badge, but not before saying something first. Your power. It far exceeds what I foresaw. Maybe it isn't possible to fully predict what the future holds. You have earned the Marsh badge, Ash. Sabrina says, and hands Ash the Marsh badge, which he of course accepts. This means you just need 5 more to get into the Indigo Plateau. Max says, since Ash now has 3 badges and merely needs 5 more to compete in the Indigo Plateau here in Kanto. But for now it's time for my first contest here in Kanto. Dawn says, excited about her first contest, which is set to happen in just 2 days. While Ash has now won the Marsh badge in his rematch against Sabrina, Dawn prepares for her first Kanto region Pokemon contest. Will she emerge victorious? Stay tuned and find out. In the middle of the night in Saffron City, Guile Hideout stands atop of a rooftop in the city watching the lights of it all, and then pulls out his binoculars towards the Pokemon Center's battlefield to see Ash currently training with his Pokemon. Not now, but soon, my prey, Guile says to himself, planning on killing Ash only when the time is right. With plenty of training under her belt, Dawn prepares for her first Pokemon contest in the Kanto region. Inside of the locker rooms of the Pokemon contest, Dawn gets ready for the appeals round, and May sneaks up behind her and puts her hands on her girlfriend's shoulders, surprising Dawn. Ah, May. Dawn says. Sorry, Dawn, I didn't mean to scare you. May says. Well, you did, don't do that. Dawn says to her girlfriend, not wanting to be scared like that. Sorry. May says, and begins stroking Dawn's long blue and in May's eyes. Beautiful hair. May, I'm a little nervous about this contest. Dawn says, confessing she's a bit nervous about the contest she is partaking in, afraid she might lose. Don't worry, you'll do great. You did great in the Wallace Cup. May says, trying to help fill Dawn with confidence for the contest, and May pulls her into an embrace. And do you really think Ursula will beat you? May asks, knowing every time the two battled it would end in Ursula losing the battle. Yeah, I know that, May. Dawn says, and May kisses Dawn's forehead in a loving manner. Now good luck out there, we'll be rooting for you, May says, and then gives her pretty girlfriend a spank on the butt, and Dawn yelps a little, then smiles at May, who walks off. Welcome. It's contest time from the great people of Saffron City. Lillian Meridian, who is contest announcer here in the Kanto region, announces to a cheering audience in the contest hall who are here to watch the Pokemon contest. The winner of this year's contest will receive the beautiful Saffron City ribbon. She says, showing a picture of the ribbon on a screen, and May looks from the audience, remembering that ribbon since she won the same kind years ago. I'm pleased to introduce our esteemed panel of contest judges. First, the chief of the Pokemon Activity Committees, Mr. Contesta. She says, "Thank you, Lillian. I'm eager to see to what will be nothing but spectacular Pokemon today, I'm sure." Contesta says, eager to see what he had just said. Next, the head of the Pokemon fan club, Mr. Sukizo. She says, introducing the second judge, "Saffron City is remarkable." He says, apparently finding pretty much everything to be remarkable for some reason. And last but not least, Saffron City's own Nurse Joy. She announces, "I hope you're all as excited to watch the proceedings as me," Joy says, and with that let us begin without first round. The performance round, where one Pokemon per coordinator puts on a show, Lillian says as the crowd cheers on. "So please put your hands together for our first contestant," she announces as Dawn enters the stage wearing her casual clothes, which is a long-sleeve white undershirt, which is covered by her black tank top, pink skirt and black stockings, now Emolga Spotlight. Dawn says, and the Sky Squirrel Pokemon is unleashed from his poke ball, Emolga. He says. The crowd then cheers even more at the sight of Emolga, since this kind of Pokemon is rare in the Kanto region. Well, this is a Pokemon you don't see every day. Lillian says, not having seen the Sky Squirrel Pokemon before in her life. Use acrobatics. Dawn says, and Emolga glides around the hall at top speed and begins flying across the halls at the same top speed. Now use discharge. Dawn says, and Emolga's body becomes surrounded in yellow sparks of electricity, and he fires multiple bolts of yellow electricity from his body, which spread from the acrobatics he is using at the same time. Whoa, that's pretty. May says, commenting on the way Dawn has Emolga using acrobatics and discharge at the same time. And Emolga just made a light show, sure to be remembered. Lillian announces. Emolga's qualities were shown in an amazing way. Contesta says, that's true, remarkable as well. Sukizo says, agreeing with Contesta on how Emolga performed. They put together a host of techniques to make a great show, Joy says. Meanwhile, in the locker room of the coordinators, Ursula watches Dawn's appeal round performance and snarls. I don't care how rare that Pokemon is, that little bitch is not winning this contest. Ursula says to herself in her thoughts, not wanting to say anything foul in front of everyone in the room. Soon the other coordinators show off their Pokemon in the appeal rounds, and soon it all comes down to Ursula. You have not seen a thing yet. She says, very confident in herself. Oh great, Miss Crazy is up next. Ash says, thinking Ursula is a bit strange. I wonder what Pokemon she's going to use. Dawn says to herself in her thoughts, wondering what her rival will use in the appeal round. Now Wigglytuff, let's go. Ursula says, and the balloon Pokemon is unleashed from its poke ball. Start off with light screen. Ursula says, and Wigglytuff's eyes glow yellow and a wall of hexagonal shapes appears in front of it. Now use flash. She says, and the balloon Pokemon emits a bright light in front of the audience, earning cheers from them. Now use flamethrower. Ursula says, Wigglytuff unleashes a red-orange stream of fire from its mouth. Now psychic. Ursula says, and the balloon Pokemon's eyes glow light blue and holds the fire and shifts into the shape of itself, earning more applauds the audience. Amazing. Wigglytuff has used the flames to make a sculpture of itself. Lillian announces, and Wigglytuff stops the psychic and the fire goes out. Dawn in the locker room watches Ursula's performance in the appeal rounds and becomes worried after seeing Ursula's impressive performance. That was wonderful combination of 4 different kinds of moves. Contesta says liking that performance, amazing and also remarkable. Sukizo says since remarkable seems to be his catchphrase, it would seem they synchronized their breathing. I completely loved it. Nurse Joy says finding the performance they put on to be excellent. That's it. The end of the first stage and the next order of business to see who will be in the next round of the contest. So hang tight everyone, we'll be back with the results very soon. Lillian says now that the appeal round part of the contest is over. Dawn, you did wonderful. May says to her girlfriend, thinking there is a good chance she'll make it to the second round of the Pokemon contest. Maybe, but do not expect to win this contest, Dawn, Ursula says, walking up to the group with Garchomp. Don't get so overconfident in yourself, Ursula, the contest isn't over yet. Dawn says, reminding her fierce rival that the second round of the Pokemon contest hasn't even begun. Maybe, but just so you know, I've been working much harder since the Grand Festival and I think I'm more than capable of defeating someone like. Oh, will you just shut up? Ash says, interrupting Ursula. Pika Pie. Pikachu says, and Ursula frowns at what just said. Excuse me. She asks. You seem to think you're a superior coordinator, but the fact is, Ursula, you're not. Ash says, fed up with her. Ursula then becomes angry at Ash's comment. The nerve. How dare you say that to me? Ursula says, angry, but then regains her composure. Or gained any, forget it, I'm not continuing this discussion any further until the end of this contest, so until then, good day, Ursula says and walks off with Garchomp. Ash, that was awesome. Dawn says, liking the way Ash just chewed Ursula out and didn't even flinch, but then again, who would flinch standing up to someone like Ursula? Well, I just couldn't stand her anymore, somebody needed to tell her. Ash says, thinking somebody needs to tell Ursula to get it through her thick skull that she's not the great coordinator she thinks that she is, evidenced by all her losses at Dawn's hands. A series of montages shows Dawn and Ursula advancing through the rounds of the contest, with Dawn using her Quilava and Ursula using her Garchomp, and soon the two make it to the final round of the contest against one another. And now the Saffron City contest is in its last round. We present our last 2 coordinators. Lillian announces to the cheering audience. To my right is Dawn and to my left is Ursula. Lillian says, showing which direction Dawn and Ursula are standing in the contest hall. Garchomp might be a tough Pokemon for Quilava to beat. Fire attacks aren't too strong against dragon types, Max says, commenting this is going to be hard battle for Dawn to win against. Dawn, I know you can beat her. I know it, May says to herself in her thoughts, knowing Dawn can beat someone like Ursula after being defeated by Dawn herself in the Wallace Cup where they first met. Now let the battle begin. Lillian announces. Garchomp, let's go. Ursula says, and the mock Pokemon is unleashed from her Pokeball, Garchomp. She yells out upon being unleashed from her Pokeball into the battlefield of the contest hall, ready to battle. Alright then, Quilava, come on out. Dawn says, and the Volcano Pokemon is unleashed from its Pokeball, Quilava. It yells out upon being unleashed from its Pokeball. Quilava, use Swift. Dawn says to the Volcano Pokemon, and Quilava opens its mouth and yellow stars come out of it, coming at Garchomp. Dodge it and use Dragon Claw. Ursula says, and Garchomp dodges the swift attack, and Garchomp's hand claws glow light green and goes down to slash Quilava. Perfect. Use Eruption. Dawn says, and Quilava charges and runs underneath the opponent. Then, it ignites the flames on its head and tail, and they grow larger. It then fires a geyser of red-orange fire from the flame on its head at Garchomp, sending her flying. Ursula's points then go down to 87%. Whoa, that was some eruption, and now these coordinators have 4 minutes left on the clock. Lillian says as the clock counts down from 4 minutes. Ursula then snarls, getting angrier after that. Garchomp, use Double Team. Ursula says, and Garchomp's body glows white and she creates multiple copies of herself to try and psych Quilava and Dawn out. Whoa, Garchomp just used a confusing double team there. How will Quilava be able to get the real one? Lillian asks. Quilava use flamethrower on all of the copies. Dawn says, and the volcano Pokemon fires up the flames on its head and back, and the volcano Pokemon releases a spiraling red and orange stream of fire from its mouth all around the copies, and Ursula smiles. Garchomp use Dragon Tail. Ursula says, and the real Garchomp jumps out of the line of fakes and her tail glows light blue and hits Quilava with it, sending the volcano Pokemon flying, but is still standing, still able to battle. Dawn's points are then reduced to about 65%. Whoa, that was one strong Dragon Tail attack that Garchomp just delivered. Lillian says. She might as well just give up while she's ahead. Ursula says to herself in her thoughts, not wanting to say anything like that out loud, not in front of the judges anyway. Suddenly Quilava begins to glow blue and white, surprising everyone present currently. What? No. It can be. Ursula says, knowing what is happening right now. It appears that Dawn's Quilava is evolving now. Lillian says, and Quilava begins to grow in size, and soon the glowing stops and fades, revealing Quilava in its new form of a Typhlosion, and it roars after its evolution. Amazing. Dawn's Quilava has evolved into Typhlosion. Lillian says, and Bianca pulls out her Pokédex, curious about this Pokemon. Typhlosion, the volcano Pokemon and the evolved form of Quilava. It attacks using blasts of fire. It creates heat shimmers with intense fire to hide itself. Awesome. Dawn says, and Typhlosion, without even being given a command, causes an explosion around itself, creating a mix of smog and fire to cover the area, which then hits Garchomp, sending her flying across the battlefield. Whoa, that was Lava Plume. Dawn says, realizing Typhlosion has learned a new move since it just evolved. Ursula's points then goes down to 47%, and the clock is shown to be counting down now from 1 minute, and Ursula becomes more agitated. No, I can still win this, she says to herself in her thoughts, more determined than ever to win this contest against Dawn. Garchomp use Dragon Claw. Ursula says to the mock Pokemon, whose claws glow light blue, and goes to slash Typhlosion. Now. Typhlosion use Overheat. Dawn says, and Typhlosion's body turns red, and it releases a powerful orange-yellow fire with a orange flame spiraling around it from its mouth at Garchomp, which then stops, and by the time it stops she is covered in soot and blows out smoke and then falls to the ground fainted. And Garchomp is down for the count. The winner of the Saffron City Pokemon contest is Dawn of Twinleaf Town. Lillian says, showing Dawn's picture under winner on the screen. Dawn, she did it. Max says, and May smiles. Good job, baby. May says, glad her girlfriend won the contest. Ursula then recalls her fainted Garchomp back to her Pokeball without Eve saying anything, only having an angered expression on her face after being defeated. Here's Mr. Contesta, head of the Pokemon Activities Committee. He has the distinct honor of presenting the Saffron City ribbon to Dawn. Lillian says, congratulations and much luck in the future. He says to Dawn. Thanks. Dawn says, and accepts the ribbon and looks at it with glee. Yes. I just won the saffron ribbon. Dawn says, holding it in the air. And with that, everybody, we bring the curtain down on another exciting action-packed saffron contest. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did, and I'll see you all next time. Lillian announces, bringing the contest to an end. Outside the contest hall, Bianca bids farewell to everyone as she departs from the group to travel around Kanto herself. Well guys, it's been fun, but I've got to go challenge Sabrina, Bianca says, planning on challenging Sabrina as her first gym battle since she is the closest. Okay Bianca, I hope we can see you again, bye. May says, wishing her good luck and saying goodbye to her, and with that Bianca is off, and the gang notice Ursula walking away from the hall with a healed Garchomp next to her. Ursula, May says, and Ursula looks at them frowning. Let me guess, I shouldn't expect any compliments from you, Dawn says, knowing how Ursula thinks. You should know that by now, and as for you Ash, our conversation isn't over yet, Ursula says, and walks off with Garchomp in tow. Okay. I guess I should watch out for her and Burgundy, Ash says. Now that Dawn has the saffron ribbon safely at hand, she merely needs 4 more to compete in the Grand Festival. And what will our heroes do next? Stay tuned and find out. Meanwhile, in the dead of night, the Team Rocket trio along with Pierce look from the top of a building at a large building in the city with words, Sylph Company, on it, and they smile. Target in range, Pierce says, revealing this was their mission. Inside of the building Sylph Company, it is a normal day as the employees inside develops some of the most commercially used Pokeballs along with looking for ways to improve upon them. Did you hear about Team Rocket trying to steal the fossil reviver in Cerulean? A scientist there asks another. Yeah, but I heard it failed. Those rockets couldn't steal something if it was right in front of their faces, he says, and unknown to them they are being watched by the trio and Pierce from a distance. Hey, he just called us idiots. Meowth says, listening in on them, and Pierce looks at the cat scratch Pokemon with a serious looking face. Stay on task, you know why we're here, Pierce says, not wanting Meowth's temper to get in the way of their mission in Saffron City. Of course, Pierce, Jessie says, knowing how important this mission is. With the Saffron City ribbon and the Marsh badge earned, our heroes prepare to leave Saffron City to continue their journey through the Kanto region. Hey Ash, I heard there's a new gym not too far from here that opened recently, Max says to Ash, having read something about a new gym opening in the Kanto region on the internet. Really? Where? Ash asks his friend, wondering where it is. It's in Commerce City, Max says, revealing the location of the next gym is in Commerce City, a place Ash had been to during the time he was challenging the Battle Frontier. Then that's the place I'm going to next then, Ash says, planning on going to the Commerce City gym next. Back to where the Sylph Company building is, Team Rocket grunts currently reside within in a floating helicopter awaiting the signal from Pierce below, and Pierce, who is below the helicopter, pulls out a radio. This is Pierce, you are clear to go, Pierce says to the pilot and the rocket grunts. Then the grunts inside the helicopter, which are about 14, jump out of the aircraft and onto the building by going down on ropes. We're on top of Sylph Co. Pierce, we're prepared to move on your orders, a grunt reports to Pierce over radio, telling the elite officer the grunts are now on top of the Sylph Company building and ready to move should Pierce give the order. Move. Contact me when you have taken the building, Pierce says, ordering the grunts to move in and secure the building and to contact him when they do that so he may enter it. You heard him, move. A grunt says to the others, go through a door on the top of the building, and the grunts walk carefully down the stairs to avoid detection. Downstairs in the Sylph Co. building, the Team Rocket grunts begin swarming around the place. Hey, what's going on? An employee asks, wanting to know what is happening. This building is property of Team Rocket now, and you shall consider yourselves our guests, a grunt says, and unleashes his Raticate. The mouse Pokemon then snarls at the employees, who then become scared of it and they become cornered. Alright everyone, here's how things are going to go down. You're all going to give us your Pokemon in your Pokeballs and stay where you are, and this will go a lot more smoother, a grunt says, and just like that everyone begins turning over their Pokemon who are in their Pokeballs to Team Rocket, not wanting to cause any unnecessary violence. In the Pokemon Center in the city, Ash switches the Pokemon in his current party with Professor Oak and prepares to leave the Pokemon Center to set out for Commerce City for his next gym match. So Dawn, where do you think your next contest will be? Max asks the coordinator from Twinleaf Town, curious where her next Pokemon contest will take place in. I don't know, Max, I'll just have to wait and see, Dawn says to her girlfriend's younger brother, not knowing where or when her next contest will be. Suddenly Ash's Pokegear rings. Hang on guys, I have a call, Ash says, and answers the phone. Hello? He asks. Ash, it's Gary. Gary Oak, Professor Oak's grandson and Ash's former rival, now friend, says. Oh hey Gary, what's up? Ash asks. Not good. I'm currently trapped in Sylph Company, which has been taken over by Team Rocket, that kind of stuff, Gary says, and Ash gasps. Where are you? Ash asks. I'm in the Sylph Company building in Saffron City. I heard you were here from Grandpa. I need your help to get me and others out of here. I'm on the 7th floor, Gary says. I'll be right there, Ash says and hangs up intending to be there in quickly. Team Rocket's in Sylph Co. Max asks. Yeah, but what's Sylph Company anyway? Ash asks, never hearing about it up until this point. Sylph Company is the leading manufacturer of Pokémon technology, Nurse Joy says, listening to their conversation. It is. Ash asks. It's a company that develops the most commonly used Pokeballs and they're constantly looking for ways to improve them. They also are known to produce other Pokémon items such as medicine. Joy explains, revealing Sylph Company develops most kinds of Pokeballs and Pokémon medicine. Which is probably why Team Rocket's taken over the place. May says, theorizing the Rockets may have taken over the place because of its status as a company. I'm going in there, Ash says. Wait. Joy says and runs in front of Ash. You can't just go in there alone. Joy says, knowing from news reports how dangerous Team Rocket is, and it is not a good idea to just walk into a building, which is currently being held by them. A friend of mine is in there and whatever they're after, it must be big. I'm going in there, don't even try and stop me, Nurse. Ash says, not planning to wait to stop whatever Team Rocket is planning to do at Sylph Company, and walks out the door, leaving everyone concerned. Ash and Pikachu then, after asking for the directions, makes his way over to the Sylph Co. building, where notices from a safe distance Pierce and the Team Rocket trio, Jesse, James and Meowth, entering the building wearing trench coats and sunglasses. This just became personal, Pikachu. Ash says. Pikachu says, agreeing with him given their history with the trio. We got to find a way inside. Ash says to his Pikachu, and they look around and Pikachu spots something and tugs on Ash's shoulder. What is it, Pikachu? Ash asks. Pika Pie. He says, and the electric mouse Pokemon points to one of Ash's Pokeballs on his belt, and Ash knows which Pokemon is contained inside of the Pokeball and smiles. Good idea, buddy, this one should help us get in. Ash says, knowing of what is inside, and it was smart. Pikachu suggested using that one. Inside of the Sylph Company building, a female Team Rocket grunt looks around the place looking for something, evidently. A voice calls out and reveals itself to be James, who is in a black Team Rocket uniform, from Best Wishes, and walks over to the grunt. The grunt then stays silent, apparently not the talkative type. Just keep the hostages from getting away. We've gotten the information we needed out of the president and we'll be leaving soon, James explains, and walks off, and the grunt smiles and walks off herself. Ash and Pikachu meanwhile waits outside of the Sylph Company building patiently, and the grunt comes in through a window, a hidden door where Ash was leaning on, and he steps back and the grunt is consumed by a pink-purple light and shifts its size, revealing it to be Ash's Zorua, who was using her special ability Illusion to infiltrate the place. Good job, Zorua, return. Ash says, and recalls the tricky fox Pokemon back to her Pokeball and goes into the entrance and then dials up his friends back at the Pokemon Center. Ash, thank Arceus, you're okay. Dawn says, glad her friend hasn't been hurt by the rockets or worse, killed. I'm fine, Dawn, I'm inside the building. I'm going to try and drive the rockets out of here. Ash says, intending on driving the rockets out of Sylph Company before they can do any or more harm. How are you going to do that? May asks. I'm still thinking about that myself, actually, May. Ash says, admitting he doesn't really have a plan how to free the hostages and drive Team Rocket out of the building. Just watch out, Ash. May says, wanting Ash to watch out for himself so he doesn't get himself killed. I'll try my best, Ash says, and hangs up and sighs. Pikachu asks, wondering why Ash sighed. Are we meant to fight these guys forever, Pikachu? Is it our destines to do this for the rest of our lives? Ash asks his best friend, wondering if they are meant to fight Team Rocket forever. Ash and Pikachu soon go up the elevator with a Pokeball in Ash's hand in case he runs into any rockets while going up. Upstairs, the trio speaks with Giovanni over a video feed. Sir, we've secured the building, but the police have surrounded the place, Meowth says, reporting to his boss over the feed. Have any officers entered the building? Giovanni asks, knowing that the police could ruin the operation if they interfere. No, sir. All the exits are being guarded. They won't be able to get in. James says to Giovanni and he smiles. Ash soon arrives on the second floor of the building where he pokes his head out of the elevator and looks around to see no one there and walks out. Alright guys, here's the plan I just came up with. I take down every rocket inside of here and then find Jesse, James and Meowth and take them out, Ash says to his friends over his poke gear. Hey you. A voice calls out and Ash and Pikachu look to see two Team Rocket's grunts. It's that Ketchum kid. Kill him. The other one says, knowing who Ash is probably through reputation. Alright then. Sceptile, I choose you. Ash says and throws a poke ball in the air and the forest Pokemon is unleashed from its poke ball, Sceptile. It yells out upon being unleashed from the confines of its poke ball. The grunts then unleash their own Pokemon, which are together 3 Zubats, a Golbat, Raticate and a Cubone. Well, this is not looking so good for us Pikachu, Ash says to the electric mouse Pokemon. Pika Pie. Pikachu says agreeing. Outside the building a male police officer talks to the pilots in the helicopters circling the building on the radio. Keep the site covered, I don't want any rockets getting out of there, he says to whoever is piloting the choppers. Back inside of the Silph Co. building, Pikachu's uses Thunderbolt on the Zubat and the one Golbat, which brings them all down to the ground fainted, while Sceptile takes down the Raticate and Cubone using 2 powerful leaf blades. The Team Rocket grunts realize they are out of poke balls and can't defend themselves, try to run off only for Ash's Sceptile to jump in their way, trapping them. Why are you guys here? What do you want from Silph Co? Ash asks. Yeah, like we're gonna tell you anything. You think we're stupid? A grunt asks, not intending to tell Ash anything about their operation here in Saffron City. Ash then frowns, not liking that response, and him and Sceptile tie them to chairs using duct tape and tape their mouths. Don't go anywhere, Ash says, and him, Sceptile and Pikachu leave them there. Like you can. Ash says, mockingly giving their current position, and goes into the elevator and presses the button which has the number 7 on it, intending on freeing Gary. On the 7th floor, Gary stands in the corner while the Team Rocket grunts guard the room to make sure nobody leaves or enters, and Gary hopes Ash can get here quick and liberate the building, but knowing him, he is probably already in the building. The elevator soon opens and the grunts hear it and go towards the elevator, and an ice beam is launched from it, which freezes them in their tracks, and Ash exits with his Glalie, Sceptile and Pikachu exit. Finally, Ash, I was wondering when you'd show up, Gary says, and walks over and grabs his belt which holds his poke balls in it and puts it back on. Gary, what are you even doing here? Ash asks. I was helping them out with some of my Pokemon research here, and then Team Rocket suddenly came in and you can see what happened next, Gary explains to Ash, revealing why he is in Silph Company in the first place. Gary, do you know why Team Rocket is here? Ash asks. I have no idea. They just barged in here from up top and took everybody's Pokemon, so we couldn't use them against them, Gary explains, revealing he has no knowledge of why Team Rocket invaded Silph Company in the first place. We'll just have to find that out from the 3 Stooges upstairs, Ash says, referring to Jesse, James and Meowth as the 3 Stooges. Don't worry everyone, you're safe. We'll be back before these guys thaw out, Ash says to the hostages inside, and him and Gary enter the elevator. Where did you think they are? Ash asks Gary, asking where Gary thinks Jesse, James and Meowth are currently located. They could have gone up to the 11th floor, that's the president's office, Gary explains, theorizing the trio might be on the 11th floor in the president's office. Then let's go and get them out of here, Ash says. Pikachu says, agreeing with Ash, wanting to get the rockets out of here right now before they do any harm to anyone in the building. Back in the Pokemon Center, the local officer Jenny talks with Nurse Joy. He hasn't come out yet, or any of the hostages, but neither have the rockets, so they're still in the building, Jenny explains to Joy, telling her that Ash hasn't yet to exit the building. Is he okay? May asks, hoping Ash is okay and hasn't gotten hurt or worse. We don't know. We haven't been able to get in, Jenny says, leaving Ash's friends worried. Gary, Ash and Pikachu soon make it up to the 11th floor in the elevator and look around to see no one there. Well, it looks like no one is here. Ash says out loud on purpose, probably wanting the Team Rocket trio to hear him. But of course you're here, waiting for the right moment to snatch Pikachu and try and make a quick escape. But does that ever work out? Ash asks the trio, knowing they are in the room hidden, and reminds them of all their unsuccessful attempts to capture Pikachu in the past. The trio then runs in front of the three after hearing all of that. Putting us in the big house is one thing, but when you point out our faults, that's another. Meowth says, "It seems while you've grown a bit taller in the last few years, you've also became a bit rude," James says. "What can I say? I'm starting to give people a peace of mind." Ash asks, revealing the reason why he stood up to Burgundy and Ursula, which has resulted in Burgundy shifting her revenge desire from Scylla to Ash, and Ursula wanting to finish a conversation with him. "For now we're just focusing on you idiots," Gary says, and pulls out a poke ball. Blastoise use Hydro Cannon, Gary says, and the shellfish Pokémon is unleashed from its poke ball, Blastoise. It exclaims upon being unleashed, and Blastoise fires two powerful orbs of water from its cannons at Team Rocket. James smiles. "First, don't think so. Carnivine use Bullet Seed," James says, and the bug catcher Pokémon is unleashed from the confines of its poke ball, Carnivine. It yells out, and Carnivine releases multiple gold seeds surrounded in a light green aura from its mouth at the Hydro Cannon, which beats it, and hits Blastoise, bring the shellfish Pokémon to the ground but not fainted. "The president of Sylph Company is currently our hostage. Twerp, unless you want him hurt, you'll stand down," Jesse says, and Ash smiles. "You know, I was planning on just beating you using my normal Pokémon, but while I was in Unova I acquired one that, well, you're going to scream," Ash says, and pulls out a Pokeball. "Bring it on, Twerp," Meowth says cockily. "What Pokémon could you possibly have acquired that can beat us?" Jesse asks also cockily, and Ash throws the Pokeball in the air, and the Pokémon inside is unleashed, and a large shadow is cast upon the trio, whose faces turn from pride to shock. The Pokémon is revealed to be Zekrom, who Ash captured while in the Unova region, that then roars at the rockets, and Gary looks at it with shock. "Whoa. Ash, you caught a legendary like Zekrom?" Gary asks, surprised and shocked by this. "Zekrom use Ancient Power," Ash says, and Zekrom's body glows white, and it creates a see-through after image of itself. The after image then spins quickly, and Zekrom puts his hands together as a silver ball with a green core, and Zekrom then hurls the ball at Team Rocket, who jump out of the way before it hits them. "We better get out of here," Meowth says, thinking they are not prepared to face Zekrom, and the deep dark Pokémon roars at them. "Meowth, what did Zekrom just say?" Jesse asks Meowth, being as he is the translator for Pokémon with them. "He just said, 'The powers of ideals will defeat you, thieves.'" Meowth says, translating Zekrom's words into human speech. "Oh yeah, we better get out here." James says, realizing they are screwed. "We are in luck. I have what we came for." Pierce says, having retrieved what they came for in the first place, "Don't let them escape with that. It's the company's most important creation." The president says, who is currently tied up. "We won't." Zekrom go after Pierce. Ash says, as the elite Team Rocket officer along with Jesse, James and Meowth run up the stairs to escape, and Ash and Pikachu get on top of Zekrom to chase after them. The helicopter they came here in now waits for them, when suddenly Zekrom emerges from the bottom and rips off its propellers, displaying its flight. "You guys aren't going anywhere but back to jail," Ash says. Pikachu says in agreement. "I don't think so, Twerp," Meowth says, and the trio including Pierce activate their hidden jet packs and begin to fly off, but Pikachu fires a thunderbolt attack at Pierce's, causing him to fall to the ground below and dropping the case, which is then grabbed by Meowth, and the trio escapes. After the whole ordeal, the entire Sylph Company building was liberated, with the police storming the place and arresting any rockets left there, including Pierce, and the president talked to Ash in his office. "Mr. President, I'm sorry I didn't get the case back," Ash says, apologizing that he wasn't able to retrieve that was in the case. It is a shame, but the Sylph Company building is liberated from those marauders, and for that you have our thanks, he says, thanking Ash regardless even though he didn't get the case back. Mr. President, what was in that case anyway? Officer Jenny asks, needing this information for her report. It was a Master Ball, he says, and everyone gasps. A Master Ball? Officer Jenny asks, not believing it. What's a Master Ball? Dawn asks, and May grabs her girlfriend by the shoulder. It's a Pokeball that can catch any Pokemon without fail, Dawn. May says, telling Dawn this is a very important Pokeball Team Rocket has stolen. Tech support reported that the designs for the Master Ball were not copied or stolen, so they won't be making their own. The president of Sylph Company says, telling them that tech support is saying the designs weren't copied or stolen, meaning Team Rocket won't be able to make more. Good if they had those. I don't even want to imagine what they could do, Ash says. Pikachu says, agreeing with Ash, thinking it's best not to imagine what would happen if Team Rocket mass-produced Master Balls. Well, now that this is over, I would like to give you something, Ash, in gratitude, the president says, and hands Ash a Pokeball. What's in it? Ash asks, wondering what Pokeball is inside of it, and it opens, and the Pokemon to be unleashed is a Beldum. It's a Beldum, Max says, and Dawn pulls out her Pokédex, curious about this one. Beldum, the Iron Ball Pokemon. Instead of blood, a powerful magnetic force courses throughout Beldum's body. This Pokemon communicates with others by sending controlled pulses of magnetism. Thank you, Mr. President. I promise I'll get the Master Ball back from Team Rocket. Ash says, promising him he will find and bring back the Master Ball to Sylph Company from Team Rocket. With a Beldum added to his roster of Pokemon, Ash and friends now continue their journey through the Kanto region. Stay tuned and find out what happens next.
Hey guys, if you like this video, please do one thing, like it, share it with your close friends who love to watch Pokemon or any fanfic of anime which are related to specific genres. So please do that and turn on the bell icon for notification of these any other series which are still ongoing on channel. Thanks for watching.